Hello everyone, Jim Williams here from CBS 2 Chicago, and we are pleased to be joined by Cora Hayworth. She's a 16-year-old activist and advocate, and Brian Anderson, he is the CEO and president of the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Chicago. Brian, we'll start with you. Some important legislation was passed in Illinois and goes into effect in 2020.
It does. In July 1 of 2020, the Seizure Smart School Act will be in effect. And what that does is it has teachers, administrators, principals, all staff will know seizure first aid. They'll take a seizure first aid class online, and then as well as seizure recognition to know when somebody's having a seizure. Many seizures are not recognized as seizures in the school place, and we want to make sure that teachers and everybody working at a school understands what a seizure is and what to do to make sure that people living with epilepsy are safe.
And because teachers, in some cases, don't know what's going on, it really can hurt a student.
It can. I mean, there's definitely cases where teachers don't know exactly what is going on. I think it can hurt even from an educational perspective, not just a physical perspective, because they might think somebody's just staring off or maybe not focused on school when that's actually a seizure. And if somebody's having a seizure, what we want to make sure they do, go see your physician. There's neurologists, there's epileptologists. We want you to be able to control your seizures and manage your seizures. And usually, once you could get that under control, back in the classroom, you'll start seeing the successes that you hope for as a teacher with young men and women in schools trying to learn.
Cora, your mom tells us that when you were born, it took years before a doctor could make the right diagnosis, right?
Yes. Yeah. From birth, my mom knew something wasn't right. I barely slept as an infant. When a baby's supposed to sleep like most of the day, I slept only a couple of hours. So right away she knew something wasn't right. And a lot of the doctors just told her that like she was kind of just crazy because I was her first child. But eventually, by the time I was about 4.5, a doctor finally suggested that we get an EEG, and that's when they found that I had like abnormal brain waves, and then they diagnosed me with epilepsy.
And how does a 16-year-old become such a forceful advocate and activist?
Well, I think it really has to do with the people I'm surrounded with. My mom's helped me advocate for myself since I was little. And then also I've learned to advocate for others who have a hard time advocating for themselves because of their disabilities. And so I feel like that's part of how I become really who I am.
Tell us about Camp Black Hawk. That's very important to you.
Yes.
And you are at the center of the activities there. What is it?
Yeah. So Camp Black Hawk is a week-long program for kids with epilepsy. It's a overnight camp, and it's free for the kids who have epilepsy. And they just do normal camp things. Because kids who have epilepsy, they have seizures, usually they have a lot of things that follow along with that. Usually a lot of camps won't allow them in. So Camp Black Hawk gives them a great opportunity to do a lot of things that a lot of other kids do, like swimming, zip lining. We do sports, we have drama, we have arts and crafts. And just socializing with a lot of other kids who have epilepsy as well is just a really big support system.
Sure, and Brian, it really tells all these young people you're not alone.
That's exactly it. It's everybody who comes to Camp Black Hawk, the 120 kids that come there, it's free of charge. We want to make sure that you get a chance to enjoy camp like everybody else gets to enjoy camp too. And also, it's safe. There's counselors, so everybody has a counselor for at least 3 people, sometimes it's 1-to-1. So Cora will be with her friends and 2 other individuals, but they have a counselor with them as well. So it's very safe. So it's safe for a parent's perspective. They know that their child's going to camp and having a great time. Many times, it's the very first time they've left their child for overnight ever in their lives. So it's a lot of pressure on the parents.
Sleepovers are such a part of growing up, but some children can't do that or haven't done that.
That's exactly it. They haven't done that in the past. And it allows these kids to have those sleepovers, those moments that maybe we all take for granted a little bit. That's why this camp is so very important. There's a talent show that you guys all do. And I think you sang at the talent show last time I was there.
Yeah, I sang with my friend who played the ukulele. And then we also did a dance as a cabin.
Tell us about the transformation that you've seen in some children who attend the camp.
I've seen a lot of like the people, a lot of the kids who start off with the camp, they're really shy. They are really like closed off from everyone else. And then by the time, especially if they're it's their first time going to the camp, or if they don't know a lot of people there, by the time the end of the week, they don't want to leave because it's just so welcoming. Everyone else is always trying to include everybody in a lot of activities and everything that they're doing. We have a big dance at the end of the week, and everyone just dances on stage. And so it's just really fun, and like it's one big community.
Brian, with this legislation and what we see at Camp Blackhawk, it seems like we've seen some advances in how we look at this from years ago.
There's definitely is. There is a big stigma with epilepsy as a whole, and there's a spectrum in the epilepsy world. So camp, there's many kids that go to camp as the very first time, and the stigma kind of holds them back from getting involved in activities. Next thing you know, 2-3 years later, people like Cora, they're going to Washington, D.C. to advocate on behalf of maybe some others who can't advocate for themselves and representing the state of Illinois. So you see this great growth within this group. And these young kids, young adults, they're the leaders of the future. They're talking about epilepsy. They're helping to break down that stigma. And there's no way we couldn't do it without people like Cora and many others that have been involved in raising awareness for epilepsy. It's so very important. We thank you as well. It means a lot to us to be able to talk about epilepsy and what we're here to do and to try to help you manage your seizures, which is really the most important aspect of what we do.
Well, Cora and Brian, we thank you